Howdy, here's Bonnie with a quick ad. I started podcast recording. What I missed from the beginning was a platform that allowed me to record my interviews with my guests in a way that gives me complete overview over the entire situation, over the audio quality, video quality, internet connection. And exactly after 3 years of podcasting, I finally found my platform to record on. It's called Zencaster. It's so easy to record a podcast on Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of Zen, knowing Zencaster's multi-layer backups ensure you always have your recordings in highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. All you have to do is go to zencaster.com/pricing, that's spelled zencastr.com/pricing, and use my code BonniesLegends, that's BonniesLegends, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster pay plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Howdy, here's Bonnie. Welcome to another episode of Bonnie's Legends. It's February and we're back with the continuous season 4. I decided to do my seasons now per year, and so I am diving into my 4th year of podcasting this year, this May, which is just absolutely mind-blowing to me. But yeah, so we're continuing with season 4. I'm really excited for today's episode. I sat down with Daniela Barrios and we talked about all kinds of productivity, rest, how one can find their own method on how to figuring out, how to implement rest, what structure looks the best. Also, we both know each other from Lexi's pretty decent, and so it was of course we talk about how at the end of the day it's all kind of an experiment and just playing around is fun. And yeah, I'm really excited. We talked at the end of 2023, and so we talked also about New Year's resolutions and how to not feel dismotivated if it's February and you're like, oh my god, I wanted to do my New Year's resolution and I haven't done it in January. What do I do? Like, the year's not over yet. Thankfully, we only have February. So yes, I really enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed talking to Dani, and I hope you have fun listening to this as well. As always, you can subscribe to our podcast. Our next episode is coming out on Saturday. It's featuring the artist Belle about her single Cold Brew, and next week, Wednesday, is another episode of season 4. And yes, I'm really excited about being back, being behind the microphone, and yeah, subscribe, leave a review, follow us on Instagram where we post little snippets and visuals to this podcast episode, and I hope you have a nice day. Howdy everyone, I have Daniela Barrios with me. Nice to meet you. Nice to have you on the podcast. I mean, we've met before. We talked in the summer, I think. Yeah, and then we were supposed to record in September.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited. I think it's happening in the right moment, in the perfect
Yes.
moment. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Nice. Me too. Yeah, so we both met each other through Lexi at Pretty Decent. As you said before I started recording, I really wanted to shift away a bit from the music section. So I just did a shout out at Pretty Decent in the chat, and then people responded to it, and here we are.
Yeah, and it's a really cool community of creative people from different, you know,
Yes.
walks of life. So what a like pool of people. So
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. Okay. So before we dive into it, I'm going to ask you the bonus legends check, which are four questions I'm asking every single person. And yes, so the first question used to be three individual questions, but I put them all together because they kind of all the basics. It's just name, pronouns, and birthday.
oh, okay, perfect. Daniela Barrios, I go by Dani. My birthday is in April 3rd, so I'm an Aries, and
Nice.
pronouns are she and her.
Nice. Who's your legend? Because my podcast is called Bonnie's Legends, and so my question to you is, who is your legend?
Ooh, that's that goes right deep into the core of the heart.
Yeah.
Honestly, my mom is my biggest legend. I've learned a lot from her, and I still do. So yeah.
Yeah, I love how the Oscars always posting every single year how the mom is the most mentioned one and the speeches. And honestly, my podcast when I ask that question, the mom is also the most answered, like the most common answer. And so, but it's yeah, moms are heroes. Honestly, they're real heroes, and yeah,
Yeah.
David Bowie wrote that song for them.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. I love that question. You're throwing a dinner party, invite anyone, dead or alive, or a band or group. Who would it be?
Hmm. That's a really interesting question. Huh. Well, I have a couple of obsessions right now with people that are alive, so I would love to learn from them. One of them is Rick Rubin, which he's a music producer who wrote the book The Creative Act, and I've been learning a lot about his creative process just because I find it so interesting. So I feel like having it at a
Yeah,
party would be really fun.
definitely.
Also, Andrew Huberman, I don't know if you've listened to his podcast, Huberman Lab.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he's in neurobiology. He talks all about like the science of well-being, and oh man, I could nerd out with. I mean, try to
yeah.
because yeah. So I think those two people would be amazing to learn about. I've also been diving deeper into the biographies of artists that are no longer alive, visual artists. So Monet, Picasso, anybody that has made history in art. I
Mhm.
feel like come on over.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Do you know Patti Smith? I mean, she's a musician as Patti Smith. Do you know Patti
No,
Smith?
no, no.
Oh, you would love her. She started out as a musician, like that's how what she's known for. But she's now an author, and I think she was one of the first well-known people to be on Substack. I think, like I follow her Substack, and she's like really. I really love her. She's a great writer, and I think that's why she became so known as a musician because her lyrics were like really profound. So I feel like you would vibe her writing and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, nice. I love that. I would love to join a dinner party.
Yeah, I mean everyone, right? Like that's just any creative person that has the desire to express something that's in their heart. I'm interested. Those are just the names that came right now, but that could change tomorrow or yesterday. So, um, yeah.
Nice. Okay, last question is if you could go back in time, what would you say to your 16-year-old self?
Oh, very timely because I've been doing a lot of self reflection work, and that around 16 to 18 years old, it's coming up a lot.
Nice.
Um, And I think the main thing I would say is you're safe. It's okay. You can try and you can fail, and everything is going to work out. It's really,
Nice.
yeah.
I love that. Everything's going to work out. It's like funny because that sentence is so basic if you think about it, but it means a lot. Like I can hear that every single day and it will touch me.
Yeah.
Like I will not grow tired from hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because it's different to hear it, right, and to say it, like everything is going to be okay, but to know it with every fiber of your being that that is a reality, that can be your reality. I think that's when it feels different, because then
Mm,
you act differently, right?
yeah.
You make different choices and you behave different, knowing that somehow, some way, it will work out.
Yeah. I always take it. I'm always touched by it whenever someone says it or like when I'm writing about it. But I think truly when it truly like hits me is when someone in so I have very lucid dreams.
Yeah.
So whenever someone says that in my dream, I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, now I got it, and then until the next time, But
Yeah.
yeah, I need someone to tell me that my dream, and then I take it seriously and be like, okay, everything's gonna be right. I mean, I guess in some ways it's the subconscious, right? That's like on work when you dream. So like, of
Right.
course, that's the time when I figure, oh yeah, right now I've got it. It was like in school time, whenever you started dreaming of the things you needed to have
Oh,
learned from the exam, you knew that you actually had learned it. Because like, what the
yeah.
hell? I did not want to dream about math forms, but here I am. Yeah,
Yes.
nice. Okay, so let's dive into it. We're today here to talk about productivity. You have the Conscious Productivity Collective, which is I love that name. It's like in a way it's like CPC. I don't know,
Yeah.
conscious productivity. I like it. It has the vibe to it. Do you wanna talk about it? Like what is
Yeah.
it? When did you start it? What's the goal behind it?
For sure, for sure. No, thank you again for this phase. Well, the Conscious Productivity Collective is basically the sweet spot that I found between all my passions. I'm a very multidisciplinary person with several different passions that I've explored throughout my life, and always struggle finding what is it that I was here to do.
Mm,
Once I found something and I dove deeper, then something else would come along. And if you're a
yeah.
creative, like you probably have had a similar experience of like, how do I put it all together, right? And in the past, like 10 years or more of my own self exploration, I started to see some trends. I started to see some connecting dots of everything that I was learning. Like one of my main passions is positive psychology, which is a study of the factors that help humans and communities thrive. So if you think about psychology for a long time, it's been focused on mental illness, which is amazing, and there is a space for that. But we weren't studying really like the mental health part of wellness
Mm,
and psychology for until like the early 2000s. So beautiful field of psychology. I went to schools for psychology and I specialized in that and love that. And then also I've always been a very creative person. So I'm always like playing with, paints or
yeah.
drawing and making. So I was like, okay, so there's this side of me that also wants to be expressed. And just the process of creating something was always very
Mm,
interesting to me. And then there's another side of project management, which feels like it wouldn't fit in it, but it fits so well once I started looking at things, because I'm pretty good at like creating systems and understanding how people work and creating ways for them to work, from a place that feels better for them,
yeah.
adapting the systems that we have versus you adapting yourself to whatever is it that you're reading that productivity should look like. So combining all of those, it was almost like a little like voice inside of my head that told me, you're here to improve the way that we work and live, and you're here to do that through conscious productivity. And I was like, okay, well, let's do it.
Yay! Hell yeah! Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what it is. It's basically this framework that I've been developing from everything that I've been studying about a kinder way to look at productivity, a
Mm.
more compassionate way to look at the way that we create. I noticed, from working with entrepreneurs and just creatives in general, that we tend to be very hard on ourselves. We tend to have very rigid standards of the kind of work that we're producing and how we're meant to produce it and the rhythm at which we're meant to produce it. And that's not conducive to creating great work. So
Yeah.
what is it that, how can we create from a place that feels aligned, that feels more natural, that doesn't feel like you're rushing? And that's the question that conscious productivity is trying to answer, or give one answer, because there are
Yeah.
many. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for telling the story of how you came up with it. That was like really interesting. Also, that yeah, I remember when we had our call, like we had a previous call where we talked about what we want to talk about. I know remembered that you talked like how you studied like psychology, and you were like yeah, mental health is important, but also like that's an aspect, and if people right, like that's an important aspect, and like I see it. I'm a very optimistic person,
Yeah.
which gets misunderstood so many times of like, oh, you've just never had a terrible experience in your life, and I'm like,
Mm.
no, not really. But it's like so interesting how people see that optimism as, oh, she just never had, she's just happy all the time, and I'm like, not
Yeah.
really. Like sometimes if you meet me, like whenever you meet me in the month also, right? Because of my menstrual cycle, I'm the saddest girl you could ever meet, but like I still have the optimism in me. And so it's like yeah, and it's like I tried to reframe it with a friends once, and I was like, my optimism is just coming from a, as I said, a positive like out view on life and things. Like sometimes like we can't lose hope, like we just, yeah, especially, I mean, it's very on brand for this time, right? It's like we cannot lose, you should not lose hope. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I love how you been like, we also need to talk about this aspect of psychology, so I really do love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, it's not to say that being optimist and looking at this side of things means that you're not looking at other aspects.
Yeah.
In fact, like, I feel like the most powerful people that are optimists and hopeful and are changing the world, like, do so from a place that they know how bad it is. And
Mhm.
because we know how bad it can get, we know how much, like, how important it is to choose hope over fear.
Yeah.
So I think it just comes from honestly, like, to me, being optimistic and idealistic is a strength, because you
Mm.
can look at what's going on out there and be like, nah, like, there's no way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can find the little threads of peace and love, and hang on to those as tight as you can and explore those instead of everything else.
Yeah. Love that. I was like looking for words. I was like, wow, let's just let that sink in. um, Um, yeah. Okay. So I really love. I said that on the first call as well. I really love his social media and like the design. I'm obsessed with it. So I'm curious. What is the collective right now? Is it how can people work with you? Are you working with people already? Like curious
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
yeah. So it's been a while, right? I was working with people for the past year or so, helping them
Okay.
develop systems for their business, especially creative entrepreneurs. So we would go in kind of like a
Yeah.
consultancy, where we go and we look at, we do an audit of everything that you have going on, Notion, Trello, Asana, Monday, whatever it is that you're working. And we look at that side, and we look at also like your specific personality and like how you work and what moves you. And we used to create systems for that. But the more I did that, the more I realized that I wanted to do something different. So at this moment, I'm in that transition of, I'm working on a product. I'm a very like tactile person. So I was like, yes, I
Yeah.
love providing a service, and I also want to make something that's physical that people can use every day. So
Yes.
right now it's just a place where I'm putting my ideas to create this what I'm calling like conscious productivity deck, which is similar to an oracle, but instead of like messages from the universe about like your personal development, it's going to be messages from the universe and positive psychology about your own process of creation and little things that you can put into place. So that's what I'm focusing on right now on on that space. Things can change. I'm always transforming, so who
Yeah.
knows what this is going to be like in a year. But that's my new focus. I paused all the consultory work and I'm focusing on making things, so I'm
Yeah.
very excited.
I love that. Yeah, no, I can totally understand that. I tried to, so I've started out when I was like 15, right, of this podcast in my first book. I self-published my first book when I was 15, and then
That's amazing.
it was German, and people were like, hey, I want to read it, but I cannot read German. And so got it translated. And that's when I really found like self-publishing is like my thing right now. And it's
Mhm.
interesting because right about that also like people are like, oh, so you just want to keep self-publishing all your life. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe in 5 years I get a publishing deal. And I'm like, hell yeah, I'll take this, right? So it's like always like right, not to have like, this feels fine for now, this feels right now,
Yeah.
but yeah, we need to stay open in our minds as well as creative. We cannot just limit ourselves to our own
Yeah.
to our own creations and passions in that moment.
Yeah.
Honestly. Oh yeah, I started out pretty young, and so I've obviously I had a product based business, for example, when I came to Lexi,
Yeah.
and but I always knew I wanted to publish other people or like other people's work, or I want to help other people, like other right young authors, like I was when I was 15, to like self publish it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so I always knew I kind of would switch into service based, and I tried it now this November. I hosted like a writing retreat, and it taught me so many things of like, what do I want to do different? What do I want to write? And it's like so interesting to see how
Yeah.
yeah, as you said, it's never the same. And I feel like how, especially the service based business, I mean product as well, but like, like the product, you can actually hit a point where you're like, this is good now, like I want
Yeah.
to, yeah, right, and then you want to go into the next one.
There's like an end to it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So it's interesting how service based, it's like I discover that right now. It's like, okay, let's do this for 3 months, but like maybe afterwards I will like change it again. Like it's so interesting how that, I feel like a service based business is never just the same service. Like that service just always changes. And you can see in Lexi, I love to see Lexi's growth and change and transformation. And I'm like, yeah, like that's just, change is such an important part of our journey, especially in art and creativity. So it's like really interesting. I love that. It's like,
Yeah.
it's
I
fascinating.
agree. I think it's like it's one of those things that we're told that it might not be good, right? When you look at the examples of people that we see that might be considered like successful by like social media standards or today's culture, like they don't talk to you, or they're not showing that exploration side, that those like
Yes.
10, 15, 20 years before like they landed into what they wanted to do. We're seeing like the final product, right? We're seeing
Yeah.
like after everything they did, this is what they chose to focus on. So when I was working with creatives, we tend to have this idea that we need to know what we want to do right now and forever, and that's the way that we're going to be successful. Because if we don't know, we're not going to make it, and we have to make this like very rigid choices about our business and the
Yeah.
structure of the business. And it's like, well, like you're just starting. Like, how are you supposed to know with like 2 or 3 years of experience? Unless there are people that have a call from very early on, and they're like 6 years old, and they're like, I want to be a doctor who saves whatever. Like,
Yeah.
yes, if you have that, that's amazing, but not everybody does. And I feel like if you don't have that, then it's totally fine to like explore and play and keep it in even like as you're talking about it in a language of like, yeah, I'm still figuring it out, and that's okay.
Yeah. 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 It's like, it was really funny because I thought about the writing retreat, I did it for like a month because like it was also during NaNoWriMo, right, where a lot of writers come together and be like, we're writing a novel in a month. And I always, I don't know if you listened to like if you were there the strategic intuition calls, but I was always like, that just stresses me out, and I'm doing my own writing retreat during the month. Like what? But I mean, my approach was more for like an easier and relaxed way, which comes back to the conscious productivity, right? Like I did
Yes.
this writing retreat because I was like, we do not need to write a novel in a month. Like, like let's just all come together and write. I think that's enough.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it was like so interesting because I realized at that writing retreat that you cannot write a novel in a month. Like you cannot even get into a novel in a month. Like, you can write like on a novel a month, but you cannot. You're not into the novel yet. You don't know the novel yet enough, and so, but it's like
Yeah.
it's so interesting from experience, like, and then
Yeah.
also again from experience to experience.
That's what's so important, the not only like exploring it in your mind, but exploring it actually doing it.
Yes.
Like I'm coming to this place right now where I'm like, oh, I want to do more products, and but that's after years of doing other things. So I ran
Yes.
mastermind groups for 2 years with creatives where we would get together for a 3 month program, and every other week we would share our goals or wins or loses or like moments of fear and loss. It was wonderful. I enjoy that. I've also done one-on-one coaching. I've done consultancy. I've done retreats as well. I led a retreat in Panama a year ago, and that was amazing. And I collaborate with another brand, and we do a retreat now every year that we call Blooming. So I've tried. I've kind of like tested, like sample test this and sample test that, and then the way I see it is that you start getting clues. Like, what is it that your soul is like lighting up when you're actually in the arena and you're doing it? Like, where is it that I call it like your heart smiles. Like you can feel when your heart smiles when you're doing something that is challenging, and at the same time it's exciting, and you're hitting like on your strengths, and you're also growing. Is that space what I'm always seeking? And whenever something stops feeling like that, I'm like, okay, how can we adjust it? How can we
Mhm.
continue making something that feels in full alignment, in coherence? So
Yeah. Oh, I love that phrase, heart smiles. That's, the writer in me is like, oh, I love it.
yeah, and we can track that back to productivity, right? Like if you when you're thinking about productivity, and we're often reading books or listening to podcasts or seeing things out there in social media about what productivity is
Mm.
like and what it should be like, and we tend to get into this mindset of like, okay, I'm going to try this, and this has to work. I'm going to try, I don't know, the a deep work session, 90 minutes 3 times a day, and this is going to be my new system.
Yeah.
Or is like it's going to be hard until you test it and you try it and you see if it works or not. Like
Yeah.
that might not work for everybody. I saw that with the, I don't know if you ever read that book, the 5 a.m. Club, I think it's called.
No,
And
but I can imagine what it is about.
oh my goodness. So yeah, there was a big moment where everybody was reading this book, and it's like you have to wake up at 5 a.m. and you have to have a routine of 2 hours, and you have to do this list of things every morning. If not, your life is just going to be horrible. And you're like, okay, so you
Yeah.
have all these people trying this out when you have morning people that love mornings, people that are night owls, people that are more creative in the afternoon, people that
Yeah.
simply because of life they can't do a 2 hour, like I cannot do a 2 hour morning routine. I don't
No,
want to.
absolutely not.
So yeah, a lot of what I do with conscious productivity is dropping the blame of what we're told we're supposed to be doing in terms of how we
Mm.
work, and start bringing in compassion and self-acceptance and love, and just kind of being like, yeah, it's okay if that doesn't work for you. Let's go and
Yeah.
find what does.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, there's always this discussion of like, let's get up at like what's the best time to wake up. And it's so interesting because I did not, I was a good student, but I was not well functioning. It was absolutely not my system. And then my mom was always like, I'm such a night owl. Like on the weekends, I always stayed up around like 1 a.m. or whatnot. And you cannot stay up. I mean, I still did, but you cannot stay up at until 1 a.m. if you have to go to school the next morning. And so it's so interesting to have seen how right now, like 1.5 years after I graduated, I see what works best for me, that I really work a lot. Like while developing that retreat, I stayed up sometimes until 4 a.m. And honestly, that's still like, if I know I have to get something done, I know what works best for me. Like I'm getting up around noon, like noonish. I have
Yeah.
my breakfast and then I slowly start, like then I do my morning things, right? Then I do my morning pages and I meditate sometimes and then I dance a little. And then around like 9ish, I sit down. That's why like last week I was
Yeah.
I mean, obviously recording is a bit of a different thing, but like I was like, I'm such a night owl. Like sometimes my work day sometimes starts at 9 p.m. and then it
Yeah.
goes until 4 a.m. because that's just when my brain is the most creative as well, and I get the most ideas. And so that was a beautiful journey for me to realize like this is my best, that's best how I work. And also accepting it, right? Like if you found something, to accept it and not shame us that this is different than any other thing we see on social media. Or I don't know, my business coach said, like my business coach has a different work schedule. So that's, yeah, accepting it is also a very interesting journey
Yeah.
on its own. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story too, because your way of work is so different from a lot of other people's way of work. And the fact that you're not only accepting it, but you're like leaning into it. This is how I do my best work. I know it because I've seen evidence of
Yeah.
what I created before. It's like you're not only in your mind, you tested it, and you have something to like build that momentum of confidence. Because
Yeah.
sometimes we can accept it, and there can still be a little bit of shame around
Mm.
like, oh, do I really like, why is it that I'm working this way? Like, why can I
Yeah.
not be normal, and all
Yeah.
those things, but to lean into it, because I think it goes also back to when we're creating something. It could be, a book, it could be a song, it could be a product, like whatever is it, or a service, or a retreat like you did. There is a moment where we really have to step out of ourselves, like in
Mm.
understand that this is like a creation that's coming through us, and it's not like in service to us. Like
Yeah.
sometimes we create because we think, okay, this is going to get me something. And I think that's where productivity gets a little toxic, because you're attached to the result, then you're like attached to the amount of things that you get to do, and the completed list becomes your value based personality. uh,
Yeah.
when and that's a way to create, and maybe there's people that are here to learn that lesson. But if you really want to make amazing work that feels authentic, like and in service to the people you want to serve, there is a little bit of stepping out and being like, okay, what does the work need from me? Like, how can I show up best for it, instead of making it about ourselves.
Yeah. Wow, I was just silently nodding to everything you said. Also, I loved how I saw that reference to all the musicians that listen to my podcast. It was like, if you're doing a song, and I was like, hell yeah. um, hope you musician listeners felt called out by that. Yeah, honestly. And also, yeah, I mean, when you signed up for this interview, it was like, can we talk about how to create and work from a place of kindness and self compassion, which goes very well hand in hand what we just started talking about. And
Yeah.
like, I mean, honestly, it was like really interesting because so I'm still currently living at my mom's house, and so her partner is a truck driver and he gets up around like 2 a.m. And, sometimes I have Lexi because, like, also the time difference. I think that's how I am naturally night owl because all of my meetings are like in the middle of the night. So it's like interesting because sometimes I'm still up at like 2 a.m. and I'm in the meeting of Lexi. Like, I'm in Lexi's night school and he gets up and is like looking at me and I'm like, middle of my work day, but also his work day just started. So
Yeah.
I found that really interesting sometimes to see. Or I worked at a bakery for some time, and I did love working at the bakery. I just could not get up at 3 a.m. to start
Yeah.
working at 4 a.m. because, right, that's when my work day is usually supposed to end. Like, what are you talking about? I have to do bread now? Like,
And also, like, how smart of you, and how like amazing of you to look then for time zones that are aligned with your work style. Like, I'm
yeah.
mapping it out, and I'm like, oh wow, she's actually got a really cool like conscious productivity system for herself, you
Thank
know?
you. Thank you. Yeah, that just happened naturally. I guess because of social media, when like, I really felt aligned to Lexi. And
Yeah,
then I felt aligned to Lexi. I think I found her through some Notion videos she'd done in the beginning of 2022.
yeah,
And I was still a high school student, and I was like, this is so cool. And so I knew I could not join the study yet because it was like in the middle of the night on a Tuesday, like I had
yeah,
school the next day. So, and then she was like, no, we have a space, like also financially, because I was a high school student. She was like, no, no, no. I wait, like, I'm still here when you graduated high school. And then I graduated high school and she did big paper planning day the first time. And then that's how I joined the study. And that's how I like fell also in love with like, oh my gosh, I'm awake anyway. And like, writing my poems in the middle of the night so I can join a night school. How perfect is this? So
yeah.
yeah, it just happened naturally through social media. I think, I mean, sometimes your phone will connect you to people who are in the same country as you, but it's not necessarily a limit, right? So I guess
Right.
it's just that's a part of social media that I love, that it's connecting you to people who are aligned with you and what do you like, your values and stuff. And so
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Do you want to dive a bit into like, okay, so what are things we can do to stay kind and self-compassionate to us? Like, also it was like such an interesting because I started using the word self-compassion, I think in the summer, when you like grow up like me, when you like turn 19 and you kind of detach yourself from your home and your parents and like your family, and you're like, I want to do something on my own now, like let me go. So that's around the time when I started using this word self-compassion, and I realized like people my own age are like, just I have sometimes friends who are 10 years older than me and they had no idea that word existed, and I was like, what do you mean? Yeah. And so I want to know like what piece of advice you maybe have for someone, like what can we do to also like to us, right? Like we know all that, we know how to be, that we have to stay kind and self-compassionate to us, but like what do we do when we feel like we're losing it, or like someone that like has no idea, right? Like my friends were like, what do you mean self-compassionate? And I was like, I don't
Right.
know
Yeah.
it.
Well, I mean, we can dive a little bit into the tactics of like what you can do, but also I want to give you like a framework to think about conscious productivity before we do that, because
Yes,
this
please.
is what's been like the most helpful for me, and it's what I've been developing. I'm like, how do we really apply it? And the way I see it is like it has this five big pillars or umbrellas, and there are more things or more tools that you can look at it. But the first one is mindfulness, right? It's just being, present in the moment. It's
Mhm.
dropping all judgment and like really living what is it that you're living at this moment. That's a big part of conscious productivity, because productivity, like traditional productivity itself, has been more focused on the future and planning
Yeah.
for the future, on outcomes, on how can we maximize our time right now. So we lose that human side of like, you can actually be really productive and create amazing work when we're just connected to the now. So
Mhm.
that's the first pillar of it. And under that, there are a lot of tools that you can use, like mindfulness techniques, breathing exercises, sensory meditations, or just simply taking a moment to, connect with yourself before sitting and working. Um, Compassion comes a bit into that part of conscious productivity, because really, when I talk about compassion, it's more about really sitting with whatever is it that you're feeling, instead of trying to push it, or instead of trying to name it or judge it or do anything with it. So you're
Mhm.
just okay. A very common example, if like I feel like I can never finish the things that I said I'm gonna do in a day, right? And it's like, okay, yeah, that sucks. That
Yeah.
feels really bad. Like everyone would feel not the best if you're
Yeah.
not, complaining what you're were meant to be doing. So allowing yourself to feel that and be like, yeah, this is kind of heavy, like I don't like this feeling. And also like, why do I keep doing this? What's happening? What's behind it? Well, you take a look at your to-do list and you see 15 different things, and you're like, oh well, like maybe I thought I could do a lot more than what I actually had time for. And then you start
Yes.
mapping out like what's your reality from a place of love and compassion. Like, okay, you have some people that I work with have like a full-time job and they're also working, and now I have a full-time job too, and I'm working on my project. And it's like, okay, so you're working 8 hours a day and you have, a life and you have things that you do and you have 2 or 3 hours for your business and your project, and you're saying you're going to do all those things, like that makes no sense. Would you
Yeah.
make your best friend do that? Probably not. So that's a lot of where the mindfulness and the compassion comes from. Really taking a look at what's going on and being honest with yourself, because you can always create from a place of like you have layers of who you think you are, but it's not really who you are, and that's not gonna take you to a place where you can make your best work. So
Yeah.
that's the first one, mindfulness. The second one is intentionality. That's one of my favorite pillars of conscious productivity, because it's like embracing that side of, okay, I have an idea of where I want to go and I'm going to be intentional about going there. Not necessarily like specific goals or like measurables. I'm not a fan of like the whole smart goal system, because I don't think it
Yeah.
works. It's not for me, it might work for some. But the way that my mentor, one of my first mentors, explained it to me is that she said it so well, is like the universe speaks to you in essence, and we're
Mm.
constantly speaking to it in form. Meaning, we're telling it we want this and we want that and we want to create this and that, and it's like, okay, but what is it that you're looking to feel, or what is it, how you want to show
Mm.
up, what's the essence behind that? So that's the intentionality side of conscious productivity, and that can happen from, in my life, I have like a word of the year that I am like constantly connecting to. And then I also have like an essence for my next 3 months. And that's where all my planning begins. It's like from that essence. And even showing up today, I like took a time to like really sit down and breathe and connect with myself and choose how I want it to be here. So that's the intentionality part of conscious productivity. And then you have energy management, which is the third pillar, self awareness and continuous learning. So, to make it short, energy management, it's about managing your energy like it sounds differently than managing your time. When we're managing our time, it's mostly like looking at our calendars and looking at, okay, I had this amount of time and this amount of things to do, and that's great and it might work. But there's another layer of it, which is like your energy. You can have the same amount of time, but you can have more physical energy than mental energy, and your time might be better spent doing something different as you plan. So understanding where your energy levels are, it's very important of like how you're going to plan to use that time. And then self-awareness is just that continuous exploration that we talked about, of like knowing
Yeah.
what is it that works, what doesn't, and continuously improving, right? Like tracking your progress, making notes, writing, journaling about what you're trying and what you want to continue or what you want to pause. So in a nutshell, that's what conscious productivity is, and how you can start to see it and apply it into your life. You can look at these pillars and be like, okay, maybe I might need a little bit more intentionality in my life. So that's where I want to focus next. Or maybe I need a little bit of mindfulness. Like I've been going into automatic pilot in everything that I need to do. So you focus there. And that it gives you like a good way, a good place to start, I would say, um, implementing this into your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I honestly, for me, the energy tracking was, I think, the most mind blowing thing I've had. Uh, Especially, I don't know. She's also a pretty decent consciously Caitlin, with her
Yeah.
menstrual cycle course. I've done that last year, and it honestly like changed my life.
Yeah.
It was like really like to work around my menstrual cycle. I was like, wow, what you mean? And also
Yeah.
what I found interesting was like when I did her course, it was like she gives you an example of how it usually is, but she's also very open minded. And so I had the thing, I was like, she was like, if you'll feel the most inspired like during like at the actual menstruation, like when you have your period, you feel inspired,
Mhm.
you get all these ideas, but don't necessarily like want to act on it yet. And then, afterwards you might have a lot of anxiety, so that's also not when you want to work on it. And then the ovulation phase is usually where you want to get the thing done. And it was
Yeah.
like so interesting because I felt like wow, and it resonated with me, and I saw it in myself, and then I also like also varied it a little, you know. I was like, sometimes I do have the energy during my menstruation to act on it, and I want to write it down and like immediately, you know, try to think, like build it in my system and like how I can do it in the next 4 weeks. And so it was like that was actually really like life changing, and I'm really
Yeah.
grateful for that. And I was like, so I mean, I just did it for like because I was like curious, and I did like her workshops, and the course was there, and I was like, oh, you know what, I'll do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
awesome. Yeah,
I was like,
that's one way to do it, like your menstrual cycle. And then there is also like the day cycle, like when you wake up, when you go to sleep, when you eat,
yeah,
like all of that affects your energy too,
yeah,
because energy, it's not only mental, it's physical, it's like there's neural energy of like what we eat and how we do it and when we do it. So there's all those different ways to map out your energy. And I think the important part here is to find the one that works for you. Find one of the frameworks for energy management that calls your attention the most. Like if it's the moon, that's great. Like let's follow the moon, like whatever it is, but have something in place to understand how your energy fluctuates through the day, through the month, through the week, through the year.
yeah, honestly, yeah, yeah. Our lives are all just cycles. Like honestly, yeah. I don't know. I just got that realization. I was like, wow, yeah, we all have like the year has seasons, and then the seasons has its cycle, and then the month has its like, wow. So I, you know, like at the end of the year, you just realize things, and you're like, wow. I just
Yeah.
had that. I just had that. I was like, oh wow, yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. Glad I recorded it. Where we all live in cycles.
Yeah.
The year comes to an end again, and then January starts again. How do you feel about maybe because we this episode will come out, I think January, February, and I think that's still a time where we talk and think a lot about our New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
Um, is can I ask you quite like can we
Yeah.
talk a bit about it?
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I feel like I took your favorite topic and you were like, hell yes.
yes, because I have opinions about this and I've studied it too. And you know, one of the things that annoys me a little bit about New Year resolutions, and it's great to have them. Like, sure, if that works for you, that's amazing.
Yeah,
And at the same time, there's so much pressure around it. There's so much guilt around, having it or not having it. And I don't think that's the best place to plan. Like I
yeah,
think the end of the year, it's a really good time to reflect on what worked this year, what didn't work, what are you most proud about, what can you celebrate. Like I think that personally that has worked best for me. And not necessarily jumping right away into I need to know exactly what my 2024 is going to look like just yet. I'm always going to keep things a little bit more open just because it works for me. It works best.
yeah,
One of the things that I do for New Year's is like I choose my word of the year. So um, that feels free for me. It feels very free because it's like okay, I'm doing something that feels like I'm putting intention into my year, but I'm not sitting down into like the tactics yet. I'm just
yeah,
setting how I want to feel. So, for example, yesterday I spent, a bit of time. I did a meditation. I light some candles. I did some Palo Santo. Like I just like prepare the space, and I did like a long journaling session to find that word. And for me, this year is going to be discovery. I just want to discover, where I want to shine this new year. So it's a different way to see it, and it'll come like at around I would say mid February, probably March, I'll probably start looking into what is it that I would really want to accomplish, where my focus is. But I think if you're hearing this and it's January, mid January, early February, and you still don't have a plan for your year, one of the things that I want to tell you is that that's totally okay. Like you don't have to have it figured out. But I think also like we every person is in a different part of their life. We're talking about cycles, and we just talked about the most common cycles, the year, the days, the weeks, but there's also like life cycles. There's moments where planning actually doesn't make sense because you might be going through a transition. You know, you might not know what's next. You might be considering different path, and you're like, okay, how am I supposed to make my plan if I don't even know where I'm going to go next? So I think there is a big space for that, that we don't often talk about, and people that might be going through moments like that feel guilty and feel like there might not be enough because they can't sit down to make a plan. So I just want to bring some light to that everybody is in a different process, and the most efficient thing for you, it's going to be what feels right at the end of the day. Like
Yeah.
that's my truth.
Yeah.